tons of print on demand videos out there are going to spend a lot of time telling you how to find good niches and what niches are selling right now. But today I want to focus on what are the 7 niches that you should completely avoid. Now, sometimes this can be just as important as the niches that you are selling. And if you are selling any of these kinds of items in your shop, it might be what is leading you to not get any sales, or even worse, have problems with your account down the road. Now, many of these I have found through my own mistakes and trial and error, so I want to share them with you so that you can be one step ahead and not make the same mistakes that I did selling these types of things. So let's not waste any more time and just jump right into all of the niches that I will never sell. Now, one of the first niches that I really stay away from these days might be a big surprise to you, and that is because a lot of times the people who jump onto this niche first can end up making a ton of money in just a few days. But for a general print on demand audience, this is a really good thing to waste a lot of time on, so you don't want to spend time making these types of designs. And that niche is very hyper trendy memes. So a lot of times these pop culture memes kind of rise up out of nowhere. They get really popular on like TikTok or Instagram very fast. Overnight something happens, and then all of a sudden everybody is making videos about this. It is the new trendy thing to say or do or talk about or sell products of. And generally I find that this is not a great niche to pursue for print on demand. When something is so trendy so fast, a lot of times what happens is by the time that you actually jump on this trend, there are already hundreds of other people who are trying to make money off of this same thing, and you end up just being a little bit too late. Or if you even do happen to be one of those first ones to make some products that are based on this really trendy of the moment meme right now, you might get sales for a few days, maybe a couple of weeks, but in the long run, this is not going to be something that is going to be making you money down the road. Now, what I like to prioritize in my print on demand business is working on things that are not only going to make sales here and now, but also can be making me money and sales down the road. This is really why I've been able to grow my business into what it is now. A lot of the designs and uploads that I did 3, 4, 5 years ago are still making me sales today because I really prioritize things that weren't just trendy of the moment, like memes or trends that were going around. Now, these can be very tempting to pursue because they look like really quick money grabs, but I find that if you just keep your head focused on making more like evergreen style content, things that aren't just going to be gone in a snap, you are going to have much more success long term. So I really stay away from making very trendy of the moment memes. Now, the next niche that I really avoid is any kind of trademark heavy pop culture references. Now, there is a lot of gray area when it comes to trademarks and copyrights of things out there. So, for example, one niche that I see a lot of people really want to pursue is things like Disney inspired items or like fandom inspired items. Now, none of those items are directly actually going after a trademark of a company. So they're not exactly using the logo from a brand. They're not necessarily using the characters from a certain brand, but they are alluding to those pop culture references just enough that people recognize what movie they're from. Maybe they put a quote from a movie or a popular book on their t-shirts, and that is a very gray area. So a lot of times you might not get flagged right away as infringing on somebody's trademark or copyright, but if you end up making money from something that is profiting off of all the notability that these brands and movies and TV shows already have, you could actually end up getting your account flagged and banned, getting your profits taken away. So I generally stay away from those. Anything that is like inspired by a popular brand is just going to be something that you don't want to mess with. Now, you're going to see this all over Etsy, all over Amazon. There are tons of people who make Disney shirts, Harry Potter shirts, really anything you can think of. People are very much stretching the laws of trademark and copyright to make profit off of these, but eventually that does typically catch up with them and they're going to get their accounts or their shops removed. So I just completely stay away from this. Like I said with the last niche, you want to be building a business that is going to be here long term. So anything you do like this is going to jeopardize the longevity of your business. Now, the next niche I stay away from now completely, but in the beginning, I really tried to sell a lot of these kind of items and it never worked out for me. And that is really overdone holidays without any kind of twist or cross niche to them. So I saw all these really cute shirts on Etsy and Amazon that had like very fun, cutesy designs with things says like Merry Christmas, or that said stuff like pumpkin spice or Thanksgiving inspired or Valentine's Day inspired. And I wanted to make stuff like that. But in reality, selling those kind of holiday items are just way too generic. Now, there really is so much money to be made in a holiday niche, but you need to figure out a way that you can put a twist on it. You can cross it with something else to have way less competition, because then you're competing against thousands and thousands of other sellers with very similar items. So, for example, instead of just selling like a cutesy Merry Christmas shirt, I might cross that with the niche of somebody's pets. So maybe somebody has a golden doodle. So I'm going to make some really cutesy Christmas golden doodle sweatshirts or cutesy beagle Christmas sweatshirts. And those are going to give me a much better chance to stand out and actually make sales than if I just made like a Merry Christmas t-shirt in a fun, groovy font. Now, the one caveat to this is if you do want to make designs that are a little bit more generic when it comes to holidays, so say you wanted to make like a cutesy pumpkin spice design, well, you definitely wouldn't be able to compete in like the t-shirt realm of print on demand. But if you do pick a more unique, very specific product type, you might actually be able to make sales. So if you really have your heart set on selling a certain type of holiday design, I highly recommend going to Printify or a manufacturing partner that you're working with and looking through their catalog for either some of their new print on demand items or just scrolling through their catalog of hundreds and hundreds of items and finding things that are a lot more unique. So while a pumpkin spice t-shirt is going to have thousands and thousands of results, if you try to sell a pumpkin spice like pickleball set, that could be way more of a unique item that you're not going to have as much competition. Or for example, if you wanted to sell like really cutesy fall themed glass tumblers, that could be another option that's going to have less competition than something like a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. Now, it's still not always the best niche to go for. I think that cross niching is going to give you the best results, but you're going to have a chance to stand out if you're either doing holiday themed things with a twist or if you're doing a holiday themed item that's a much more unique and specific product type. So highly suggest, if you never do, just look through Printify's full catalog to get some ideas, and I will link them down below if you have never made an account with them before. But that is a great way to find a way to actually stand out in this niche that I would otherwise stay away from. Now, the next thing that I completely stay away from in my own business is any kind of very negative or offensive humor. Now, there are people who sell these types of items that do very well. They make a lot of sales, but what I have found is that there is a very kind of fine line or gray area between content that is okay to sell on Etsy or Amazon and then content that is going to get flagged and taken down. And I generally just find that sometimes this can alienate buyers, and I prefer to sell things that are a little bit more on like the wholesome side that tap into other really unique niches without being like offensive or edgy. Now, the other thing that this can do is sometimes if you sell any kind of kids items on your shop, so even if it's not associated directly with this item, if you have a bunch of kids products in your Etsy store or on Amazon, sometimes if they're associated with these kind of more like adult or offensive themes, that can flag it as something that Etsy or Amazon is going to pay attention to. So I generally just don't want to sell that kind of stuff, and I found that there are much better ways to make money on Etsy or Amazon. Now, if you do choose to sell this kind of stuff, you're just going to need to do your due diligence and do a lot more looking into and research on if this goes against the content policies of Etsy, Amazon, Redbubble, etc. Sometimes they are very strict, and some platforms are way more cautious than others. So especially if you're selling one design across multiple platforms, you need to adhere to whatever is the most strict in their content policies, and that's going to keep you the most safe. Now, the next niche that I completely stay away from, and this is one that I see so many new sellers get caught in the trap of wanting to sell these kind of items, but they're not going to get you sales, I almost guarantee, is just selling like generic inspirational quote or generic feel good items. Now, these could be things like a t-shirt that says good vibes only, or like a workout set that says hustle, or a tote bag that says like make today a great day. Now, there are items like those that sell well on Etsy or Amazon, but anyone who made those items and is getting sales currently probably uploaded those types of items years ago when there were way less print on demand sellers. In reality, that those kind of like inspirational quotes are just way too generic, and there are so many of them out there. So if there is a certain phrase that you've heard a lot and you're like, hey, this would make a great t-shirt, just the fact that you hear this phrase said a bunch, there probably are thousands of other people with this kind of item, with this kind of quote or inspirational message on it. So I would really just stay away from those. They are just way too oversaturated. Now, the next niche kind of goes along with one of the niches that I talked about previously, but it's a little bit different, and that is selling profanity heavy designs. Now, like I said, with more of like the offensive or edgy humor designs, sometimes this is allowed on platforms. You can sell t-shirts and mugs and sweatshirts that have swear words on them or some kind of profanity. It doesn't always directly go against the content policy, but a lot of times this flags you from participating in certain ads. You can sometimes be restricted in certain marketplaces, and a lot of times it can just be harder to get momentum and grow long term if you are selling these items that sometimes are a little bit riskier. Now, you don't necessarily have to stay away 100% from these, but I have chosen to do that in my own shop because I just don't like to deal with all this extra stuff. If there are problems that I might encounter from selling something like this, I am just going to choose to spend my time working on other niches. And I found that cutting out designs and products that have profanity on them, it's not hurting my business in any way. So I'm just going to stay away from them and work on other things that will bring me profit and not bring any of the risk of selling items that might get flagged for certain reasons. Now, another niche that I stay away from completely, and you definitely should too, is selling any kind of very complicated, overly detailed artwork. Now, I see this especially for sellers who are selling on a marketplace like Redbubble or Zazzle. They take like very, very cool and fun, trendy artwork and they put them all over their items. Now, sometimes it seems like a good idea, but what I have found is that a lot of times the products that you are selling, the way that print on demand items are printed, they aren't made to be so extremely detailed. So they look very good if you're just doing like bold designs with some details in them. But if you get into very, very fine line details, if things are very complicated, very delicate, that's not necessarily going to translate super well to a t-shirt that is just printed. And this is even more true if you are trying to sell any kind of embroidery products. Those do not do well with fine details at all. You need to make bigger, bolder designs with fewer details, fewer colors, and that is going to give you the best results. And along with this, whenever you are making designs, you never want to put like any kind of photograph as a print on demand item. And what happens is a lot of times people will take like a photograph of something and they'll put it on a t-shirt and it will generate a mock-up that looks pretty good because you can see digitally the full photo, what it's supposed to look like. But when it's actually printed, the quality is just not the same. And this is nothing to do with like the quality of the manufacturing partner. Just t-shirts are not necessarily made to have like printed photos on them or printed pieces of artwork on them. That is just not the medium for it. So definitely stay away from any very, very detailed, complicated artwork that you want to sell and print on demand. Now, so those are all the niches that I stay away from. But what is my actual formula for what I do actually do? How do I find good niches that aren't any of these? And how do I actually get them on products that are going to make sales? Now, typically the formula that I use is I like to do something that I call cross niching. So that's a little bit like what I talked about before, where I'm going to take something really popular like a holiday and I'm going to cross it with another popular category. This could be something like careers or hobbies or different pets or dog breeds. And I'm going to put those together and that's going to give me a way more specific niche. And I actually have an entire free guidebook for you guys that helps you come up with over 40,000 different niches that aren't overly saturated, along with a workshop kind of walking you through how to use that guidebook. I'll link all the information for that down below. You can sign up totally for free and I'll send you the video as well as the guidebook to your email. But once I've picked out a really good niche, so for example, if we were going to do like a Halloween nurse shirt, that could be a way more specific niche than just trying to go after like a generic nurse design or a generic Halloween design. Once I have that, I'm going to go over to Printify and I'm going to find the product that I want to sell. Now, something like this, I could sell on one of their t-shirts, or I could look for an even more unique product, maybe something like a glass cup, maybe even a candle, a tote bag. They have all of those kinds of items. I'm going to pick the one, I'm going to upload my design and get it on my platform like Etsy. Now, why I like this kind of approach is I am making evergreen designs for my products that are going to allow them to not only sell this year for Halloween, but next year they could also sell for Halloween. The year after that, they could still be selling, because nothing about that is tied to a specific time. It's not tied to a specific trend or a meme that's going on now. It doesn't have any content that could be a little bit risky and get flagged down the road. So while I might only make a few sales from that this year, we are building up the catalogs in our shops so that every single time we add more items, that is just more income and more sales that's going to come in every single month as the months and the years go by. So print on demand grows exponentially. So each month that you add new products, you are just adding to the catalog that is hopefully going to still be making sales years down the road. So that's why it's really important to both have a niche that's really good and a production partner that is going to stand the test of time. That's why I highly, highly recommend working with Printify. They've been here for years. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. So if you make a listing on Printify that's going to be sold on your Etsy store, you don't have to worry that you're not going to be able to keep selling that years down the road. So my biggest advice for new sellers is focus on niching down to very specific things, and also focus on designs that are evergreen, that can be sold now, but also can be sold any year in the future, that aren't tied to a specific year, a specific time, trend, holiday. And that way you're going to help your business and your income grow month after month, year after year. Now, if you want some ideas of some other great niches to sell right around this time of year, I do highly recommend watching this video next that's going to talk about some really big niches right now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.